Executive Summary. This report contains the research findings and recommendations arising from a global research project conducted by Mr. Colin Allen, AM, which is a part of the researcher's graduate studies at the Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT's School of Individual Study, SOIS. This project received approval from the RIT Office of Human Subjects Research, Institutional Review Board. Subsequently, the World Association of Sign Language Interpreters, or WASLI, and the World Federation of the Deaf, or WFD, affirmed their support for this project. Project guidance was provided by Dr. Kim B. Kurz, a faculty research advisor at the RIT's National Institute for the Deaf. And Dr. Deborah Russell, a research advisor who is the honorary president of WASLI. The research was conducted between May and December 2020. This work was informed by responses submitted by 112 country respondents in total, with a response rate of 46%, 57 out of 125, for the WFD participants, and 75%, 55 out of 73, for the WASLI participants. This report is divided into sections and presents data and analysis based on these responses, including demographic information, the status of national associations of the deaf, and associations of sign language interpreters, or ASLI, as organizations. Training of and for sign language interpreters, and training for the deaf community, and leadership issues pertinent to NAD and ASLI leadership. In summary, the main findings were: first, very few countries collect government-sanctioned data on the number of deaf persons and even fewer record details of sign language users. Second, there are insufficient sign language interpreters to meet the access needs of deaf people. Despite the agreement that collaboration between the local NAD and ASLE was important, this did not always translate into formalized agreements. Third, there was a diversity in how formal training was delivered to sign language interpreters, with the majority indicating that deaf people were eligible to participate in sign language interpreter training programs, although this did not necessarily translate into practice. Fourth, the majority of countries did not have a certification or accreditation system for sign language interpreters. Although, of those countries which did have a formal system of recognition, almost all had a means to register the number of professional sign language interpreters. Fifth, some training was evident for both national associations of the deaf and associations of sign language interpreters, including how to work with sign language interpreters and how to work with the deaf community, respectively. Next, NAD particularly emphasized that they did not appreciate sign language interpreters or ASLE leaders speaking on their behalf. And that sign language interpreters could enhance their understanding of the deaf community and its language and culture. Finally, leadership training programs for the deaf community were more apparent than for sign language interpreters. In situations in which leadership training was not available, it was primarily a result of funding or human resource capacity. Leaders of both organizations considered representation, advocacy, and promotion of the organization and liaison with the government as vitally important. Based on these findings, a number of recommendations have been put forward. First, data collection specifically in relation to either deaf people or sign language users by country governments with national associations of the deaf to advocate for this provision. Second, the need for training for national associations of the deaf about the importance of data collection. Third, greater communication and collaboration between sign language interpreters and deaf associations with regular review of relationships between the parties. Fourth, increased funding for training for national associations of the deaf and associations of sign language interpreters. Next, more leadership training for the deaf community and sign language interpreters, and other combined training offerings. Also, more professional development for associations of sign language interpreters. The need for and transparency of policies underpinning the operation of associations of sign language interpreters. And finally, a proposal to undertake a global survey regarding deaf people wanting to become sign language interpreters. In conclusion, the importance of leadership training and capacity building cannot be overemphasized. If the executives of both National Associations of the Deaf and Associations of Sign Language Interpreters are to effectively represent their constituents and advocate for the enhanced human rights for the deaf community.